Since most of our practices have proved to be environmental time bombs, we figured there had to be an angle somehow on death. Earth burial and cremation seemed to have some sort of enviro concern, but we couldn't find the slant. Just like the story of the guy who stole wheelbarrows every day from the castle while the guards frantically searched through the sand in them to find out what he was stealing, we missed the obvious. On the 2-hour drive to Lindsay, Ontario to visit Northern Casket, I tried hard to imagine what it would be like. I was here to see a product called the Enviro Casket, but I wasn't sure what my reaction would be to a casket manufacturing shop in general. Well, it was great. Casket viewing is normally done only in times of grief, sadness, and stress. With those factors not present, what remained was a huge, fascinating shop with the finest woodworking tools I'd ever seen. I can't speak for the products of other casket manufacturers, but Northern's caskets put modern furniture makers to shame. They're fashioned from solid wood that's been planed, shaped, and jointed at complex angles to form the final lines and curves. Each component is hand-fashioned, inspected, and fine-tuned. The only sad thought that came to mind was that, aside from the occasional antique, a casket is the only well-built item that any of us may ever expect to have. The environmental aspects of our caskets are probably not at the top of our shopping lists, but Northern Casket was aware of a European study tracing certain airborne pollutants back to the crematorium. This also raised the question in their minds about what kinds of materials were being introduced into the earth as well. Modern solid wood caskets contain plated metal hardware and staples, petrochemical finishes, and synthetic plastic lining and bedding, none of which are desirable to burn or bury. Not wanting to wait for legislation, Northern spent some time developing the Enviro Casket.
We came very early on to the development, to the realization that we were in fact looking at almost a back to the future type scenario, where we were actually looking at going back into a colonial type manufacturing mode of peg and dowel construction to avoid using nails, plated staples, screws, and etc. to get the physical strength and the componentry put together on the unit. We've developed means where the handle, we've come up with special hinging and pivoting bars that actually swing out, so the lifting devices on the handles are very similar and actually stronger than a conventional handle. And we looked at the components as far as accessing the product and having its function in the display area to be exactly the same. So we developed wooden hinges with a special rotational pivot on them with support bars that were retractable to provide the same type of a format in the product that we had in a conventional mode. Some of the development that came to us in a more difficult vein was how do we put, first of all, a finish on the product so that it's certainly not raw wood, because that doesn't look like a finished manufactured piece of goods, and still achieve not only the aesthetics but the protective nature of the finish. That was a very difficult part, and with the help of a number of different suppliers that we have used in our conventional product, we developed a method of putting walnut oil, a natural derived walnut oil, together with a beeswax and heat that solution so the two of them would melt at a perfect temperature and create a singular application that we could put over the wood that would not only give us color but protects the actual wood itself from the inherent entry of moisture and the repellent of moisture. Our last question was, how do we get the interior of the casket, meaning the cloth that's commonly used now, to actually trim or upholster the casket? How would we get it to as natural a state as we possibly could? From the surface, the answer was fairly easy. We had to go back again and search the market to establish where we could get a natural material such as a cotton or a linen and have it in a dyed format if possible, but without the benefit of a chemical dye. So we looked at plant dyes, obviously, to create the colors, and we have successfully done that with both the cotton and the linen. And then, of course, the stitching had to go back to 100% cotton thread. Most of the conventional casket interiors are all stitched now with a nylon thread, and the materials used are rayons and acetates and so on in the form of crepes and satins and velvets. So once we've done that, the second part of the upholstery stage and the finishing stage was how do we address the need for the actual body of the casket and the bed, if you will. And in this particular product, what we've gone to is a cotton-based felt as a liner on the top, and then shredded wood basically provides the resistance and the build for the actual bedding in the product, thereby retaining the natural basis of all the componentry that goes into the casket. A lot of our conventional products now have either a spring mattress or a synthetic product which is used in the providing the bedding of the actual casket. So we felt this was a definite improvement, and there again, that's going back again. This was originally, the wood, wool, and so on was originally used in the early mattresses, and of course you've seen the old trappers movies where they've had the bedding was made from straw and what have you. And there again, there's another example of how we've kind of gone back in production history, if you would, and to search out product that would be brought forward to today's needs and put in this product.
Along with solving a myriad of construction puzzles, Northern has some nice touches. This casket is having a decorative carving installed in the lid. It's removable and will serve as a keepsake after the service. As is the case with other environmental alternatives, the Enviro casket, well, feels right. It's elegant and simple. Although available in several varieties of wood, the Enviro casket is a dignified pine box.
In a lot of cases, in a funeral type setting, people are vanity sometimes comes into play, and they feel almost duty bound to buy the biggest and the most expensive they can possibly afford. We're finding that lately, though, people are recoiling from that type of a situation, and they're looking more at not only what is more appropriate to the life of the individual that they're buying the casket for.